So, in this last video on the topic New Left Economy, with its particular relevance to India, let us try to understand if hypothetically, because there is no serious debate in India on New Left economic model. So let us assume, because even if there is no serious debate, yet there have been some informal incorporation of some populist, not exactly new leftist in India. Instead of new left, rather there have been extremely populist economic prescriptions. So there is no serious debate and discussion on new left model of economy. But in India, there is often a drama that is populism, extreme populism. Even if it is uneconomic, but it should be populist. So out of this pursuit of populism, what the politicians often and some semi-literate academicians proposing in the name of ideology, mostly populism. So India's new left is mostly radical populism. So in new left we have seen there is very serious attempt to build an alternative to, a genuine alternative to, an honest alternative to capitalism because of its fundamental problems in capitalism. But in India, what could be or what could have been building a genuine and honest alternative to capitalism, often it goes on to become radical populism, competitive populism. It's not even populism, competitive populism, because politics, petty politics, means winning the election dominates the economy. So when economic model is dominated by the political marauders, political contractors, then it is all about political contractors is the right word for the agenda builders in India, political contractors. Sometimes they are politicians, election fighting politicians themselves, and sometimes the so-called strategists. So unfortunately, tragically in India, it has been radical and competitive populism. So in competitive populism, you can just offer anything because only purpose is to win the election anyhow. Even, it's not winning the election also. What is the most pathetic in India is that the parties sometimes are not even concerned about winning election for themselves, but more about how to defeat the ruling party. So it's not even competitive, genuinely competitive politics. It is about how to overthrow the ruling party, to cause political instability, economic instability, to defeat the ruling party has been the main agenda. So when defeating the ruling party, ruling government at the center is the sole purpose, then it is very natural that there is no serious thinking about alternatives to capitalism. It's only about the economic model which can, in the shortest span of time, which can catch the attention of masses, which can create the hysteria amongst the masses, which can create the sense that whatever has been done by the ruling party is the wastage of time, and the moment you choose us, all your wishes will be fulfilled. So this is radical populism, negative populism, competitive populism. Competitive populism means what one party is offering, we are going to offer more than that. So it becomes machli bazar or it becomes sabzi bazar, bhindi bazar. Because if one bhindi seller is selling it at, it becomes auction bazaar. So India's political bazaar becomes auction bazaar. Which party is going to offer how much more at lowest, means you should not ask, means the party should not ask people to sacrifice this and this. How much you are going to, it's like a bribing the people immediately before the election. This is how the political bazaar of India, political canteen of India is dominated by radical populism, destructive populism. It's destructive populism. It is subsidy driven, subsidy centric populism, free booting, free loading, etc. etc. So there is hardly any serious attempt to build an alternative to capitalism. There may be some academicians doing their researches in JNU and other universities, etc., but hardly there is collaboration between researchers and politicians, so that what is happening in research arena could be replicated in political arena. A serious attempt to build a political agenda which has some serious thought uh, about, about building the substitute for capitalism. It remains limited and confined only to the research institutes, universities. Even though there are some professors and researchers affiliated to and associated with political parties, it hardly gets their researches hardly get any place in the electoral manifesto of any major political party, or even for that matter minor political parties also. I have been studying keenly the electoral manifesto of all the party. In last 2 years at least, there is no talk of in any electoral manifesto of any political party about the concern about the capitalism, and a concern also, genuine concern, to build an alternative to capitalism. It's all about radical populism, destructive populism. So whatever gets place in the manifesto of Indian political parties, it's destructive populism. It's hardly any genuine attempt to build alternative to capitalism, whether by any name, whether it is new left or new right, by no name there is any serious attempt to build an alternative to capitalism. Let us hypothetically imagine if there could be an, uh, uh, an attempt to incorporate new left in India, what it could be. However, I must repeat, no political party in India has the courage to to think about it or to seriously incorporate. Forget about what they are going to offer in electoral rallies. Not even 2 or 3% of what is offered in electoral manifesto is offered in rallies. Electoral manifesto में something कुछ और है और rallies में कुछ और है, but इतना भी नहीं करते। अपना इलेक्टोरल मैनिफेस्टो में भी ऑफर नहीं करते कि हम ऐसा एक अल्टरनेटिव बिल्ड करना चाहते हैं, वी वांट टू बिल्ड दिस काइंड ऑफ अल्टरनेटिव. नथिंग इज offered even in that is because that is going to be official document of the party. Supreme Court has ruled that electoral agenda, being the official document of the party, can be made a matter of evidence in courts. We can hold political parties accountable to, whenever situations arise, we can hold the political parties accountable to their own electoral manifesto, especially when they have come to power. So we can question them, what their governments have done after having come to power. Are they genuinely concerned, or have they made any serious, honest attempt to implement their own promises contained in their own electoral manifesto or not. So forget about electoral rallies and uh, where such things could be debated. Not even in their electoral manifesto there is place for such debate and discussion that reflects the level of electoral political debates in India. Let us hypothetically assume that if there is a new leftist agenda in Indian politics, how should it look like? So, it should look like high corporate income taxes, because new left is about incentivizing small businesses and deconcentrate the wealth in the hands of the corporates. So it should look like that. And Congress government, UPA government has been doing this even earlier. So it was UPA 1 which and supported by communists also, that they increased corporate income tax to 30%. It was NDA government that brought it down to 25% first and then 20%. So let us imagine if there is a return of UPA in which communist, socialist, so-called socialists are also the coalition members, then their brand of new left economy could be increasing high corporate tax to their earlier level when they had taken it to 30%. They can also propose MAT, minimum alternative tax, in case of some companies, especially foreign investing companies, violating the corporate or evading the income tax, corporate income tax. They can reintroduce MAT with increased rates. So increase in corporate tax from 20% to 30%, minimum alternative tax. For the maximum, they can take it to 25%. Extreme case can be acquisition of some big corporations. If they're really serious about building alternative to the existing capitalism, as is often criticized and alleged by Congress party and its leaders and some communist parties, that in India बहुत सारे लोग नरेंद्र मोदी, they take the name, नरेंद्र मोदी के जो भाई है, जो दोस्त है, सारा ग्रोथ उनके पास चला गया है. So there are many dirty slogans also कि कुछ लोगों के, कुछ कॉर्पोरेट्स के डायरेक्टली नाम लेकर बोलते हैं कि ये कॉर्पोरेट्स हैं, नरेंद्र मोदी etc. Meaning that during Narendra Modi's regime as Prime Minister, concentration of wealth has reached the peak, crony capitalism has increased, Adani, Ambani, etc. There are few names, 4, 5, 6 names which are always associated with Narendra Modi, mostly false. Just to give the message that concentration of wealth has increased during this period of time, 2014 onwards, etc. And if they if they are angry against this so-called or alleged crony capitalism, then even if we expect that they have sense of revenge or their policies are guided by sense of revenge, then this is what maximum they should do: acquire their properties, acquire their companies. So I can say that if there is a Congress-led UPA again, or whatever the name, then they can decide for the acquisition of, let us assume, worst, Adani and Jio. Jio का 5G को acquire कर लिया या Adani ports को acquire कर लिया. So that could be the worst case scenario. So acquisition of some private corporations, because they may have some sense of retribution. The private corporations which have not bought the electoral bonds for Congress and Communists, which they have a lot of anger against. सो अगर उनके अंदर ये फीलिंग है कि अडानी अंबानी एक्सेट्रा ने हमारे लिए कॉरपोरेट इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड्स नहीं लिया है, हमारा कंट्रीब्यूशन अगर बीजेपी के कंपैरिजन में बहुत नीचे चला गया है, इफ इट इज़ बिकॉज ऑफ फ्यू targeted corporates, private corporates, let us take a revenge against them. तो रिवेंज इस तरह से हो सकता है कि उनको एक्वायर कर ले, उनके शेयर्स को डिवैल्यू करवा दे, या देयर आर मेनी अदर अल्टरनेटिव्स बाय विच if there is a government and if there is a target, then government can find many ways to punish them, many ways. So government can have many ways. Once in power, the government can have many ways to penalize their rival corporates or their targeted corporates. अगर डायरेक्टली ओवर्टली कुछ नहीं करना है तो कोवर्टली इनडायरेक्टली भी बहुत कुछ कर सकते हैं, बजट के थ्रू कर सकते हैं, राइट? Then let us assume that government decides to legislate ownership rights of employees in private corporation. So if they really concerned about New Left, then they should be coming with a law. There's an assumption. In case there is replication of New Left in India, then they should come out with legislation to give by law or under law the ownership rights to what kind of ownership rights that can be decided by the government. It may be in the form of equities, increased equities to employees. So 50% of their salary to be in the form of, I mean, this is a proposal, this could be legislated upon. 50% of their salaries to be in the form of equities, which makes them the owner in the company. And this could lead to democratization of ownership, democratization of power within the private corporate structure. This could be legislated. If it is legislated, we can discuss the merits of this, and mostly it looks that it has many more merits than demerits. If there is a legislation, if it could really be legislated upon, it could be good 50% of the salaries, instead of being in the form of cash, let it be in the form of equities. This would be one of the most genuine New Left implementation, New Left feature in India if it is done. So that is a highly positive thing. If 50% or maybe more than that, if there is a more radical government tilted more in favor of New Left economic idea, then they can provide it for 2/3 of their salary to be in the form of equities. तो जस्ट इमेजिन अगर रिलायंस है और जो भी प्राइवेट कंपनीज है उनके 2/3 जो सैलरी है, एवरेज सैलरी, लेट अस इमेजिन इट इज़ 1 लाख ऑफ एम्प्लॉयज़, तो 1 लाख का 2/3 66,000 इफ इट गोज इन द फॉर्म ऑफ इक्विटीज, पर मंथ उनको इक्विटीज मिलता जाए, तो आफ्टर 1 or 2 years द एम्प्लॉयज़ विल बी द एक्चुअल ओनर ऑफ दैट कंपनी. So the entire structure of corporate ownership will change in favor of employees. That would be the real employee-owned companies. Democratization of capitalism. Nothing could be more democratic than this. Employees are the owner, but there is again a problem. What about the lower level employees? उनका तो सैलरी इतना कम है कि अगर उसके बदले में मिलता भी है, then still there will be huge income difference between the middle level employees and the lower level employees. So still there would be 200 to 250 or 300 times difference between the, just imagine there are employees earning 10,000 and there are employees earning 1 lakhs, or some employees are getting 2 lakhs, Let us take the example of Amazon. So the average salary is 2 lakhs for middle level employees. So there would be huge income difference between the lowest level of employees and middle level of employees. Forget about CEO, etc. Okay. Another proposal from New Left in Britain was creation of workers' cooperative by law. So if we assume this to be implemented in India, there should be a parliamentary law providing legal framework for formation of workers' cooperative. So in all industries, worker cooperative to be the real owner of the unit, the firm which they are running. No scope of concentration of wealth in one or two or 1% of the top rank shareholders. It can be owned by the workers themselves. So there should be a legislation which provides for workers cooperatives in India. So the new government can think about or could think about a law which could provide for workers cooperatives. Then legislating more powers to local bodies, as let us assume, although central government has very less power under it, however, central government can make a model law which could be followed by the state governments, in which they can, if they could, they can delegate more powers to local bodies like panchayats and municipal bodies, economic powers, so that their entire nature, from just the passive implementers, could become the positive owners. So most of the local businesses transferred, or rather given in the hands of local bodies, panchayats or municipal bodies. This could be one form of building a new left for India. How much it is feasible in India, that is a separate chapter, we will discuss it. ये तो एक assumption है कि ऐसा अगर न्यू होता है तो अगर न्यू लेफ्ट होना है इंडिया में तो इस तरह से हो सकता है. This is just an assumption. Whether the political parties and governments will really be interested in doing this or not, that is the real challenge. Okay. Then they can also go for nationalization against the current trend, which is denationalization of nationalized bank, because there is realization in the present dispensation establishment that we have over-nationalized the banks, and due to over-nationalization of the banks, we have this big problem of NPAs, non-performing assets, and because of this large stock of NPAs, the capacity of the banks to earn profit and to give more loans to their prospective customer is severely compromised. So if banking system is not or failing in meeting the needs of roaringly rising sectors, private sector in India, so if banking sector is not able to provide loan to all emerging sectors in economy, it's mainly because of their handicap in the form of their increasing size of NPAs. So NPA doesn't allow them to lend more. That's so simple. So against this realization, there is current trend of denationalization, because more than 2/3 NPAs are owned by, or they have been created under nationalized bank. So denationalization. So that's going on. More banks, more nationalized banks are going to be privatized in the coming time. But if there is a government with an alternative worldview, especially if it is aware of new left economy, then it can decide to stop the denationalization and instead to choose nationalization, so that nationalization benefit we can again give more loans to our preferred clients. That's the benefit of, irrespective of the fact that it's going to create NPA. If there is a different realization that we need to give more loans to small businesses, then that issue of NPA can become irrelevant if there is a different worldview. Let there be NPA, whatever. We will decide and we are determined to give more loans to the smaller businesses. So to meet this objective, a government guided by this worldview, this new worldview, especially of expected new left economy, it can decide to go for not only to stop the denationalization but to nationalize. तो ये भी हो सकता है कि कुछ प्राइवेट बैंक्स को भी फिर से नेशनलाइज कर दें, जैसे 1970s में और 80s में मिसेस गांधी ने किया था. तो नेशनलाइजेशन कर सकते हैं अगर चाहते हैं तो, if they are guided not by economics but guided by social worldview, as the new left insist. We don't want economics to guide our policy. We are not concerned about economy. We are concerned about society. So if there is a government which is not concerned about economics, but if concerned about society, then it should not hesitate in taking such extreme and radical steps, like जहाँ पर national denationalization हो रहा है, वहाँ पर denationalization को stop करके nationalization start कर दे. That is possible if there is a government committed to new left economy. They can go for loan waivers also, because a large number of new units, MSMEs and small businesses being offered this incentivized loans, and if there is NPA created by small businesses, then the next government which boasts of or claims to be committed to new left economy, imagined new left economy, it can decide to go for, because earlier they have done it for farmers. So there is a very strong tradition in India of waiving of the loans of farmers as early as 1930s, even much before independence of India. When Congress governments came to power in 1935 under Government of India Act 1935, the most important radical decision they took was the waiver of debts, loans to farmers. And since then it has been a tested policy of Congress government to waive the loans of farmers. तो उसको फिर से कर सकते हैं, और इस बार फार्मर्स के लिए नहीं, इस बार फार्मर्स के लिए भी प्लस उससे ज़्यादा लोन्स मुद्रा स्कीम के अंदर जो स्मॉल बिजनेसेस को मिला है. एंड इफ दे हैव फेल्ड टू क्लियर ऑफ their loans, then government committed to new left can decide to can declare the waiver of loans for small businesses. So that could be another. And then it can be followed again by the loan waiver for the farmers. So these are some assumptions about Indian opposition, which is, instead of being genuinely committed to new left, its commitment is mainly to radical populism, destructive populism. So when political parties in India are committed to destructive and radical populism, then instead of new left, they may be guided by radical populism. तो radical populism का तो एजेंडा ही कुछ और है. अगर genuine new left होता तो ऐसा होता. अब तब हम डिस्कस करते कि इसके लिमिटेशन क्या है. ऐसा करते हैं तो इसके इकोनॉमिक रिपरकशन क्या हो. लेकिन इंडिया में तो ये इशू ही नहीं है. Not even leftist political parties are talking about their leftists have research associates. They have JNU professor doing research on behalf of Communist Party of India and Communist Party CPI. But they rarely and exceptionally they talk about these things. Okay. अगर हो सकता है कि कभी CPI, CPIM इन लोगों को पावर मिले तो they could think in terms of new left. But in India, new left को, because it comes from a different tradition, जो new left आ रहा है, ये कहाँ से आ रहा है? ये ब्रिटेन से आ रहा है, अमेरिका से आ रहा है, which is more about जो 20th सेंचुरी का जो डेमोक्रेटिक सोशलिज्म है उससे आ रहा है. बट जो कम्युनिस्ट है उनका अपना ट्रेडिशन है, उनका अपना ट्रेडिशन वो मार्क्सिस्ट ट्रेडिशन है. सो स्टिल दे बिलीव in the overthrow of capitalism and democracy, the way it works, even if it is in graduated manner. But there is connect between communists and New Left. And it is not a surprise that communists celebrate the victory of Democrats in America. Communists and leftists do celebrate, even though their economic agenda, political agenda is different and still in line of 19th century Marxist, Leninist, revolutionary agenda. Yet they do sympathize with, they do celebrate the victory of New Left in Atlantic region, whether it is West Europe or North America. तो डेमोक्रेट्स को लेफ्टिस्ट इंडिया में सेलिब्रेट करते हैं, ये जानते हुए कि उनका रास्ता अलग है, इनका रास्ता अलग है. और रास्ता ही नहीं, डेस्टिनेशन, रास्ता तो कई बार सेम हो सकता है. जब कम्युनिस्ट बहुत ज़्यादा हार जाते हैं और मार्जिनलाइज हो जाते हैं, देन दे स्टार्ट सेलिब्रेटिंग द विक्ट्री ऑफ एनीवन हु क्लेम्स टू बी लेफ्ट. कोई भी अपने को जो लेफ्ट बोलते हैं उसको वो सेलिब्रेट कर दे. And that is not a surprise that leftists in India do take pride and do support and sympathize and celebrate the victory of Democrats in America. Recently, they did celebrate the victory of Joe Biden, because although the Democrats in America are imperialist also, we know very well. But somehow Democrats are closer to, or rather leftists are closer to, rather Democratic Party in America is dominated by the leftists, ideologues, researchers, journalists. That is why leftists in India also, they always want, and they would always want that the Democrats should win. So the victory of Joe Biden over Donald Trump was a matter of celebration for Indian lefts, no doubt about it. They all wanted the defeat of Donald Trump. The battle of symbol. Right? Similarly, their objective and their methods are quite different from the Labour Party of Britain. But still, if they have to choose between Conservative Party and Labour Party, then they certainly would choose Labour Party. Even if they know that their objective is different from the Labour Party's objective. Their methods are to be different from the Labour Party's method. Yet, between Conservative and Labour, they would of course choose the Labour. Right? So that is the level of their closeness with the New Left. To this extent, they are close to the New Left. But that closeness is so superficial that instead of trying to build an Indian variant of New Left, they surrender to radical populism or destructive populism. So either they want complete revolution or they surrender completely. या तो उनको रिवोल्यूशनरी सोशलिज्म चाहिए, या नहीं तो वो नहीं मिला तो complete surrender and now working only through competitive populism. तो या तो कम्युनिज्म चाहिए, एब्सोल्यूट कम्युनिज्म, या नहीं तो कंप्लीट सरेंडर. कंप्लीट सरेंडर का मतलब कि पॉपुलिज्म, डिस्ट्रक्टिव पॉपुलिज्म, सब कुछ फ्री में देंगे. दिस डिस्ट्रक्टिव पॉपुलिज्म. The slogan is, we want to build a society, not economics. But ultimately, this slogan leads to destruction. आप कहीं कुछ नहीं बनाते, जैसे अरविंद केजरीवाल ने दिल्ली में किया. मोहल्ला क्लिनिक देंगे. तो या तो मोहल्ला क्लिनिक देंगे, मतलब हेल्थ को इतना ईजियर बना देंगे कि poorest से poor person को best से best health मिल सके. But एंड इलेक्ट्रिसिटी फ्री कर देंगे, वाटर फ्री कर देंगे, तो आपका 70-80% बजट इसमें चला जाता है पॉपुलिज्म में. अब जब जेन्युइन जो प्रॉब्लम है, एपिडेमिक है, देन यू आर नॉट एट ऑल प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर दिस बिग प्रॉब्लम्स. सो स्ट्रक्चर तो कुछ भी नहीं है, जस्ट गिविंग अवे योर मनी, just frittering away your money without building any structure. That is when an epidemic strikes, then you are completely exposed, finished. तो वो जो फ्री इलेक्ट्रिसिटी और फ्री राशन विदाउट एनी वेरिफिकेशन सबको दिया था, तो उससे कुछ नहीं होता अल्टीमेटली. तो या तो हम कंप्लीट कम्युनिज्म ले आएंगे या कंप्लीट सरेंडर करेंगे. दैट इज द लेफ्ट model of economy and governance in India. And that is why they do not, rather, if it comes to adoption of new left, then they would put forward the logic that this is nothing but bourgeoisie. New left is nothing but a bourgeoisie attempt. It's a capitalist revival. So instead of making some practical attempts, they would call it, ideologically they would term it as a bourgeoisie attempt to revive capitalism. So this huge gap between their ideal and their reality. Communism से कम कुछ भी नहीं ले आएंगे, that is idealism. Reality क्या है? मोहल्ला क्लिनिक. और इसके बीच में है कोरोना. So that's how you are exposed between your idealism that is extreme on one side and mohalla clinic that's another extreme on another side. The same happened in Venezuela, Zimbabwe, everywhere. So you offer maximum welfare and in reality you are exposed to eating rat. That is what happened in Venezuela. You offered free meat to all population, but this free meat to all population ultimately took you to the reality of forcing your people to eat meat of rat. तो आपका वेनेजुएला में प्रॉमिस था कि सभी लोगों को बेस्ट मीट प्रोवाइड करेगा स्टेट, बट देयर इज इकोनॉमिक्स, somebody has to pay for it, but the revenue is not coming. So offering the free meat to all population ultimately ended up into forcing your own people to eat the meat of rat. This is how your extreme idealism pans out in reality. It goes to this level, forcing your population to eat rat's meat. So people have to pay. In the end, people have to pay the end for all such radical and extremist populist policies. One day or the other, somebody has to pay for it. So that is very unfortunate in India that on the one hand, there is no genuine attempt to discuss and debate how an alternative to capitalism can be built. Instead of a genuine concern for building alternative capitalism, there is destructive populism, offering UBI to all population, offering everything free, printing money, all kinds of measures which can ultimately take India to the same path that what happened to Venezuela, etc. So India में ये सब तो होगा नहीं, but following extreme populism, what will happen? ये सब तो होगा नहीं. होना तो चाहिए ये कि there is serious attempt to incentivize the small businesses in India. अगर इसको भी करें तो इसमें बहुत सारे इकोनॉमिक प्रॉब्लम्स आएंगे, बट द प्रॉब्लम यह है कि ये भी नहीं होगा और जो होगा वो होगा डिस्ट्रक्टिव पॉपुलिज्म. सो व्हाट इंडियन अपोजिशन वुड डू if not the serious attempt, genuine attempts to build an alternative to capitalism, then what? So instead of these measures, Indian opposition parties would rather prefer to offer following. As has been promised by Congress Party in its 2019 electoral manifesto, this is the most radical offering by the Congress Party of India, which they played, which they relied so heavily in the election of 2019 that Congress Party would offer universal basic income, the concept which has been popularized by Abhijit Banerjee and his wife Esther Duflo, etc., for which they were awarded Nobel Prize also. UBI, Universal Basic Income. So that is the only serious offering from the Congress Party. So far as New Left is concerned, Congress Party since plays its politics on the same cards which is used by BJP also, that is corporate funding. So if corporates are not funding, then how to win them back to the fold of Congress? That's the strategy of Congress. Instead of replicating this strategy of New Labour Party of Britain, Congress Party in India just trying to take some revenge against BJP corporates, BJP friendly corporates funding BJP, take some revenge to cause them some financial harms in financial markets, bringing down their share values, and on the other hand, the loyal corporates, the loyal companies like Bajaj, etc., how to incentivize them to further grow in their businesses, in their share valuation, and then how to expand the base of Congress loyal and Congress friendly or left friendly. Leftists also have, communists, both the communist parties have their own loyal corporates, So how to expand the business base of left friendly and Congress friendly? So it is competitive capitalism rather than new left as an alternative to capitalism in India. This is the unfortunate conclusion which pains as a person who is interested in genuine attempts to build alternative to capitalism. So instead of honest attempts, genuine attempts to build the alternative to capitalism, what in India will happen is competitive capitalism. So Congress and coalition led by Congress, instead of trying to build a genuine alternative to capitalism, it would rather go for competitive capitalism. BJP capitalism versus Congress capitalism, NDA capitalism versus UPA capitalism, ruling party capitalism versus opposition party, Mamta's capitalism versus BJP capitalism, Amit Shah capitalism. So instead of trying to build an alternative to Amit Shah or Narendra Modi's capitalism, there is competitive capitalism of Mamta Banerjee, of Sitaram Yechuri, of Rahul Gandhi. That's the tragedy of India. यहाँ पर सभी पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज के अपने कॉर्पोरेट्स हैं, अपना कॉम्पिटिटिव कैपिटलिज्म बनाना है. When they come to power, then instead of making any genuine attempts to really invest in the making of a new economic model, the political parties of India would try to give more power to their own loyal corporates. तो कांग्रेस अपने लॉयल कॉर्पोरेट्स को इतना बेनिफिट देने की कोशिश करेगी कि उसके कॉर्पोरेट्स, उसके लॉयल कॉर्पोरेट्स और ज़्यादा एक्सपैंड हो जाए, उनको इतना प्रॉफिट दिलवाए कि वो परमानेंट कांग्रेस के फिर से वंस अगेन, पहले तो थे ही, फिर से एक बार कांग्रेस के पास आ जाए. एंड द सेम वुड बी डन बाय Mayawati has been 80-90% funded by Dicky, दलित इंडस्ट्री इन चैम्बर्स कॉमर्स ऑफ इंडिया. तो मायावती का अपना कैपिटलिज्म है, समाजवादी अखिलेश का अपना कैपिटलिज्म है, लालू प्रसाद का अपना कैपिटलिज्म है. तो ये सब अपने लॉयल इंडस्ट्रीज एंड कॉर्पोरेट्स को अलग अलग अपने अपने गवर्नमेंट में अपने अपने तरीके से empower करेंगे rather than trying to build a genuine alternative to capitalism. That's the tragedy of Indian political parties. So, capitalism is rooted in India's brand of politics itself. Corporates run the politics of India. चाहे कोई भी पार्टी हो, corporate will dominate. No, only the XYZ will be replaced by ABC, but वो होगा हमेशा corporate. So XYZ की जगह ABC आ जाएगा, BCD की जगह EFG आ जाएगा. So corporates will run financially and economically the political parties rather than political parties taking the lead, taking the determination and taking the leadership role to somehow like what can be done and has been done by Labour Party in Britain. They can take the risk. They did take the risk in Britain. But India में political parties इतनी financially they have made themselves so dangerously dependent on the corporate that they allow their agenda to be run by or to be driven by Indian corporates. So corporates change होते हैं और political party change, I mean उनका so बीजेपी की जगह पर कांग्रेस आ जाएगी और बीजेपी फ्रेंडली जो कॉर्पोरेट्स है उनके बदले कांग्रेस फ्रेंडली कॉर्पोरेट्स आ जाएंगे. बस इतना ही बदलना है इंडिया में. Only this much changes in India so far. That's a tragedy. अगर genuine attempts होता कैपिटलिज्म के अल्टरनेटिव बिल्ड करने के तो हम क्या कर सकते थे? वर्कर्स कोऑपरेटिव्स बना सकते थे, कोऑपरेटिव ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस बना सकते थे. So I will discuss separately on what could be an alternative, a genuine alternative to capitalism in India. So one class I want to devote on what could be the real alternative to the existing capitalism in India. But then we'll discuss what are those small businesses, local businesses, which can really be used to build an alternative to the existing capitalism of India, to deconcentrate the economic strength power of existing corporates, and how to build a people's capitalism in India, how to build a people's economy in India. We'll discuss this in another next video because it will take time. Otherwise, I had thought I would conclude this part also in the same video, but since it's going to take more than 40 minutes, so I will make a separate video. What could be the the Indian brand of alternative to capitalism? How to build a new economy in India? जो इकोनॉमी अभी एग्जिस्टिंग है कैपिटलिस्ट सिस्टम है और जो होगा वो भी कैपिटलिस्ट होगा, दोनों ही कैपिटलिस्ट होगा. बट जो होगा, जो हो सकता है, that can solve many of the problems, existing problems of our existing capitalism. So next video I should make on अभी जो existing capitalism इंडिया में है इसमें क्या क्या problems है. We must accept with courage, yes, there are problems. अभी तक जो भी किया है वो वेस्ट के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में किया. अब इंडिया के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में देखते हैं कि इंडिया में जो कैपिटलिज्म है और इंडिया में जो सोशलिज्म भी है उसके क्या मेन फीचर्स है, उसके क्या प्रॉब्लम्स है, एंड देन सेकेंड इसका क्या सोल्यूशन हो सकता है. हाउ टू बिल्ड एन अल्टरनेटिव इकोनॉमी इन इंडिया, whether we call it capitalist or socialist. Mostly Indian economy at present is capitalist. But there are welfareism. Welfareism has been increasing because the budget size has been increasing. So welfare has increased. So 30% socialism है, 70% capitalism है. या बोल सकते हैं 75% सो कैपिटलिज्म है, 25% सोशलिज्म है, बट दोनों में प्रॉब्लम है। इंडिया के वेलफेयरिज्म में भी प्रॉब्लम है, जिसको ज़्यादा टेक्निकली सोशलिज्म बोल सकते हैं। बेसिकली वेलफेयरिज्म इज सोशलिज्म इज वेलफेयरिज्म, तो उसमें भी प्रॉब्लम है, और जो कैपिटलिज्म है उसमें भी प्रॉब्लम। What could be the alternative? What could be the solution? That should be the subject matter of the next video, which I shall be making very soon. That's all for this one.